Episode of Santiment's This Week in Crypto. I'm your host, Brian. I will be flying solo today to talk about the markets and all of the ups and downs, but mostly ups going on over the past week. It's been a bullish momentum kind of second slash third week. I guess I'd call it middle half of January. And we've got a lot we can go over here, seeing so many big gains all of a sudden, like it's November again. I think there's a few factors going on. Trump is coming into office in 3 days. We had some positive reporting coming from the CPI report in the U.S. Even the Israel-Hamas ceasefire is causing some optimism in the world again, and we have plenty of projects that are improving and kind of playing catch up on their retraces that they had at the end of the year and beginning of this year when we were slumping a bit. XRP being probably the most notable, Litecoin also having a lot of excitement revolving around its upcoming potential ETF. So let's look into some of the data and understand what kind of signals we should be looking out for as we turn to the second half of January and potentially see some new all-time highs again soon. All of a sudden, we saw Bitcoin dip as low as 89K about 4-ish days ago. And yes, we saw some bottom sellers, a lot of people getting pretty jaded and skeptical about crypto in general. And we seem to have not only recovered, but seen a complete turn in terms of sentiment. So an important factor that we'll look into today is how the crowd is perceiving this swing, not just the swing itself, but seeing whether we've gone from fear mode to greed mode, which would be a warning sign, right? We don't want to see the crowd too euphoric all of a sudden just because we've gotten massive green bars. We want to see the crowd being skeptical of further gains all the time, whether we're losing money or gaining money, because the markets are a zero-sum game. And if we don't have retail selling off, then it is very tough to continue climbing, because that means the whales are going to be the ones selling off instead. And we want the whales to be accumulating constantly. So here we go. Looking at some of the prices and the notables over the past week, Bitcoin up about 9.5%. It was up a little over 104. Seeing the price at this time, oh yeah. So it jumped from, it got to a high of about 104.4K from what I'm seeing, and now it's at about 103.8. Ethereum is back up above 3,400. And then here's the big story. XRP made a 7-year high. It got to about 339 yesterday, still up about 41% over the past week. So it's just having an enormous week. Solana up 17%. Binance Coin fairly dormant compared to everything else. Dogecoin up another 25%. Hedera up 36%. And then we see the largest gainer actually is XDC, which has jumped into the top 60 market caps over the past week here. So it's having some huge momentum. Looking at the overall market cap, crypto has climbed about 8.7% based on the nearly 3,600 projects that Santiment tracks. And then volume has actually been completely flat. So that's interesting to me. Even though we've seen some positive swings, the trading has not picked up significantly at all compared to 1 week ago. I would assume if we get close to that 106 to 108K level where we're really teasing a new all-time high, that's when volume really picks up and we get a lot of polarizing views. People that sell off because they think this is as high as it's going to go, or people who finally are getting excited because they'd rather buy near all-time highs than when there's an actual dip. On the social volume end, Bitcoin actually is being talked about slightly less across social media compared to a week ago. Ethereum, quite a bit more, plus 12%. And then XRP, as you would expect, more than double the amount of discussions across social media compared to a week ago. So it's been kind of the highlight for a lot of people. Whether you're in XRP or not, it's drawing a ton of attention. And we'll look into a little bit on why in a moment. I also posted a few things. For one, these are the projects seeing the biggest rises in whale activity over the past week, meaning the amount of $100,000 or more transactions is up significantly for these assets compared to 1 week ago. DAI has 3 different appearances in this top 10 list at 1, 5, and 9 on the BNB, Arbitrum, and Polygon networks, respectively. And then we've got projects like Dex, Layer Zero, Aave, Telcoin, Gate. There's XRP, 81% more than a week ago, and Ondo. So the reason I put this list together is because we want to constantly see which projects whales are kind of showing increasing activity toward in order to understand what the most volatile projects are, where they might either be buying dips or taking profits. Based on this, since there was already quite a bit of momentum about 15-ish hours ago when this was posted, this could actually be a bit of a warning sign that whales are taking profits for these assets. Obviously, DAI is a stable coin, so that's a different story. That means that there's a good chance that they are moving a lot of stable coins either to exchanges or away from exchanges for respective buys or profit taking. I think overwhelmingly this was a sign that they were planning to buy more crypto. And yeah, over the past 15 hours, things have continued to rip upwards. So that's some good validation there. And then I have a couple XRP posts. Check this out. So a little over 511,000 more non-empty wallets exist on XRP compared to just 2 months ago. That's a massive gain, a little over 7%. And then we also saw, just like the whale activity post validated, the most whale activity in 6 weeks for XRP. So obviously it's having a huge comeback right now. And when you hit a 7-year high, that's going to draw a lot of whales out of the woodwork. Where was my other XRP post? Yeah, so this was yesterday. XRP, Ethereum, and Bitcoin all were the top 3 trending assets. And that's not just because they're the 3 largest market caps in crypto. It's because they were drawing increased attention for either their price action or their news stories. And if we take a live look now, XRP is still number 1. Litecoin is now number 2. Ethereum's number 3, and Bitcoin's actually off the top 10 list. Let's take a look at what the context is behind XRP. So users expressing optimism about XRP's potential for price appreciation. Recent mentions highlight XRP's surge in value, growing market cap, and relevance in U.S. strategic financial planning. And then there was some signs that we were seeing some increased institutional interest, whale accumulation. Obviously, there's still some discussion about the SEC, who obviously they've been through the saga where they argued XRP as a security, so they're past that. But I put here, based on the research, cross-border payments, predictions of significant price increases. There was something else. I need to find it. Make sure to get this news story right, because there was something. If chat or Max can help me find that, I would greatly appreciate it, because I know it's important and I don't want to let the XRP community down. Well, anyways, as far as I know, the the main theme is that the SEC seems to be transitioning. Yeah, no clue. No, it's okay, Max, no worries. But the SEC in general, obviously transitioning into Trump's presidency, is going to be having a very different approach, a more pro-crypto approach. And that is affecting all of crypto in a positive way right now. Just understand that this is more in the buy the rumor phase, right? Because the presidency for Trump has not started yet. It won't start for another 3 days. We'll find out on Monday when it's official. And he's already announced there's going to be immediate changes that he will be addressing the day of his inauguration. So I think that has a lot to do with why many assets are pumping, and XRP especially has seen massive, massive climbs as a result of this anticipation. Moving on to some Bitcoin metrics here. So obviously, crypto is going to go as far as Bitcoin is able to carry things right now, and transaction volume has still declined. So this is a slight concern for me. We see that it really peaked up here in December, the first week of December, about 6-ish weeks ago. So we can draw a quick line and look at how transaction volume has done this and price has done this. They're both on their own axis. So keep in mind that we'd want to see kind of an even downswing or an even upswing for price. Since that time, though, we can draw another line and see prices go up once again like this, and transaction volume is maybe slightly climbing, but not quite nearly at the level. So point is, the on-chain level in terms of overall volume moving around the network is not quite up to par right now, and we'd like to see that improve a bit. And the same goes for other utility metrics like daily active addresses, which is the amount of unique addresses interacting on the network, circulation, which is the amount of unique coins moving on the network. They're both staying pretty low right now. I'd hardly call this an upswing in daily active addresses, even though we're getting just a mild uptick right now. So look for this to improve. It means that there's less overall players in crypto right now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and prices can very well go up while there's less players. Some might even argue that more negativity and people absent from crypto can allow for the few in crypto to push up prices with less resistance. Yes, I understand that, but generally speaking, you need rising utility across a network from a long-term perspective in order to justify price rises. So I'm still a bit skeptical that we're just going to blast right into an all-time high based on all of the faith of Trump coming into office soon. MVRV wise, so looking at average trading returns, as you'd expect, the 30-day returns have blasted back into positive range, sitting at about plus 7.5%. 365-day returns are sitting back over 30% now. Yes, these are warning signs. You'd much rather be owning crypto when others are in the red and bleeding a bit, as opposed to when everyone's already up. That means there's a lower probability that we are going to continue to see rises, and we might need to see some event that cools off the markets just a little bit. Obviously, every altcoin out there has its own MVRVs we can look at, but in terms of Bitcoin, this is kind of where things start, because we need Bitcoin to stay afloat or continue to climb in order to allow more and more rises over time. Obviously, though, it's been a great celebratory week for those who have been longing crypto, and we don't want to take away from that. In terms of BitMEX and Binance funding rates, a little bit of signs here over the past week. Let me just zoom into the past month here so we can get a better look. A little bit of a sign that we are seeing some interested shorters, which is a great sign. That means there were some people getting pretty negative, not believing in this recovery. So just to give some context, since January 13th-ish or so, we have seen prices, about somewhere between 13 to 15% rise since this dip here. So it was a pretty quick one. And during that time, lots and lots of um, divots in this normally flat funding rate that we were seeing for most of the past few months. People just weren't shorting or longing and kind of sitting on the sidelines. So this line shows where it normally is. And all of these divots indicate that there was kind of an increased interest in shorting, especially right here. You can see people on this short rebound we saw on January 10th and 11th were opening big shorts on both BitMEX and Binance, mostly BitMEX, but even a little bit on Binance here too. And that was a great sign that the crowd was starting to get pretty skeptical. And with skepticism comes a lot of short liquidations and eventual rises. So funding rate right now still looks pretty neutral. And I'd be surprised if we start seeing a ton of shorts again. Maybe we get, a mild retrace over the weekend and that causes people to get slightly bearish again. But for now, I think we might see similar to what we saw in November, December, which is just a lot of flat expectations in terms of funding rate. Whale transactions, nothing special on the Bitcoin side of things. Obviously, with Bitcoin climbing, it's great news, but XRP, Litecoin, and some of these other big performing altcoins over the past week, they've drawn a lot more whale interest. In fact, why don't we take a quick pause and we'll go to our activity matrix here. And if we go to the detailed tab, so this will show where we're getting a lot of red, very active network activity, or blue, very inactive network activity. And yes, things have cooled down pretty considerably across the board. We see a few exceptions. So if you're looking at this for the first time, what you want to be looking for is orange or red labels for the names, because they are basically averaging all of these red and blue boxes together on the latest date. So this axis on the left is indicating the past 7 days. The latest day of a full market close is here. So January 16th was the last 24-hour period we have of complete data. Aragon, for example, is very blue because the latest day for active addresses, network growth, whale transactions, social dominance, exchange inflow outflow, mean dollar age, and age consumed are all very cold right now, or very inactive. This doesn't necessarily mean that Aragon is bearish. However, if we look at these prices here, they're very red, indicating that compared to other altcoins, they have underperformed significantly. So down 15% over the past 24 hours. That's pretty disappointing if you're into Aragon, because obviously markets have been mostly rising over the past 24 hours. So Aragon isn't showing signs of many dip buys or whale, increased whale activity, anything like that. And as a result, it's showing that there's still very little network activity, thus a low likelihood of Aragon suddenly turning around. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, Litecoin has been pumping a lot, obviously up 8% in the past 24 hours, up 30% over the past week. And that means it's one of the best performers, especially on a weekly scale. So all of a sudden it's seeing these big red boxes. So active addresses are super high. Whale transactions are super high. Social dominance is super high. Mean dollar age and age consumed is super high. So tons and tons of very high spikes toward the second oldest asset in crypto. This means that there's probably a lot of profit taking going on, thus a high likelihood that we've seen, at least for now, the end of Litecoin's outperformance compared to the rest. So if you trust the data, which I believe you should, Litecoin is indicating that it might have a cool-off period now. It doesn't mean it won't still go up, especially if the rest of crypto goes up. But if you're looking for the best performing altcoin that's going to go ahead of everything else, What you want to be looking for are assets that are orange and red on this chart, but haven't up to now already been pumping and outperforming the rest of the markets. So for example, if we look around, Fela, which is a fairly obscure asset, but it's the 217th largest market cap at the time of this recording. It's suddenly getting tons of active addresses and network growth and whale transactions, and even the crowd is starting to pay attention. So it's down 4% over the past week, down 4% in the past day, down 7% in the past week, and as a result, it's getting a lot of red activity. That looks like a sign that it could break out, assuming crypto can continue this upward momentum. So that's what I look for here. I look for assets that are down currently compared to other altcoins, but suddenly having big network activity, which indicates a turnaround. I've talked about this before, but high network activity doesn't necessarily mean bullish, and low doesn't necessarily mean bearish. It means look for the high network activity as a signal that a turnaround is more likely from whatever direction it's going. Prices are already going up and you see a turnaround, be a little careful, like we see with Litecoin. Prices going down compared to the rest of the markets, and we see a turnaround sign, that's a positive signal that we could see something good. Another decent example of that, I saw one, STPT, which is the 311th market cap asset. That could be a candidate. And there aren't too many others I see. If we go to just the largest activity period, Litecoin is number one, XRP is number two. These are obviously assets that have already been pumping a lot, so I'd recommend being a little bit cautious with them. Lido DAO, on the other hand, that could be a good example because it's only up. Let's go to the detailed tab. Lido DAO, yeah. So it's only up 3% in the past day. That's not that special. It is having a pretty good week, but in terms of longer term, only up 8% in the past month. That's a little bit average, and it's suddenly seeing a ton of network activity. So that could be one looking into. You get the idea. I won't take too much more time on this model, but you can check it out. Just look in our insights for the activity matrix, and you'll find several resources, a write-up I did, a few write-ups I did about it, and links to the model and how to activate it and use it. All right, let me take a quick drink here. Max, do we have any questions in the chat or comments about the markets that I can address as we're midway through? No worries. Okay. So we talked about some on-chain metrics for Bitcoin. Oh, by the way, how's my mic setting? Let me make sure I'm using my good mic here. I'm not. Well, this will help. How does that sound comparatively? Max, can you hear me okay? Oh, hold on. Sorry. You were probably talking and I changed my headphones too. How do I sound? Yep, my fault. Perfect. All right. So one of the most important metrics, obviously, is whale activity. And I actually need to update the axis because whales have continued to accumulate at a fast enough degree where it went above the y-axis that I had preset. So now we have adjusted just slightly and we see a pretty nice big bump over the past 24 hours, indicating another step up in terms of 10 plus Bitcoin wallets and how much they own. Just over the past 24 hours, they added another 1,049 BTC to their wallets. May not sound like much, but over time, if we go way back to right around the start of the bull rally, roughly to 3 months ago, that is, They've added a total of 126,780 more Bitcoin to their bags collectively. That's a 0.78% rise, not a huge percentage, but enough to allow Bitcoin to continue to have this bullish momentum. And that's what it's all about. We want to see this bright green line, arguably above anything else on Santiment, continue to move up. There's been enough testing, enough, you know, analysis and hypothesis and thesis testing to see that this 10 plus BTC wallet line has a high correlation with where prices go next. Just keep in mind it's on a long-term basis. Don't look on any individual day and be like, why are whales accumulating but prices are going down? That happens all the time. You can see, you know, if I just show, take off all the other lines. If I just show this line compared to the price, which is in these dark green bars, yeah, I mean, it'll waver up and down all the time. But the long story or the summary is when you see this line going up over time, the prices tend to follow. And it goes both ways because obviously 2022 being a very bad year, I take off the axis restrictions. Look at how they were dumping like crazy from February all the way until December of 2022, and the price eventually followed. It's not always immediate, but eventually when they start to accumulate again, you see prices go the other way. This is not a coincidence. You really just have to play the long game, and if you trust the key stakeholders in Bitcoin, you can end up finding a lot of profitable opportunities. And right now, they continue to look like they're moving in the right direction. We documented how, you know, right around Christmas, they started to flatten out pretty significantly as I zoom back in here again. Maybe that's too much zoom. I want to be able to give perspective. There we go. So yeah, right around, call it the 20th or so, they seemed to really put on the brakes a little bit. And we anticipated this even when we were hitting this 108K all-time high on the 15th and 16th. We said, you know, this has been an extremely profitable year for crypto, equities, even gold and silver. There's going to be some profit taking going on just for tax purposes, and it might be very temporary, but be ready for, you know, key stakeholders to put on the brakes. And that's exactly what they did. And we kind of saw this flat period here, but I'm happy to see that they're starting to trickle up again. I know it's kind of hard to see from this perspective, but any climbing going on right now is going to help justify a new upcoming all-time high that I know many traders are anticipating. So look out for that. I'm going to zoom back out to about 6 months now and look at a few other metrics below. One thing that you need to continue to keep an eye on is the supply and exchanges, which is also still looking very solid for Bitcoin. It actually got to as low as about 7.68% of Bitcoin on exchanges. Then we saw this slight bump as we were bottoming out, and now it's going back down again, 7.69%. So as long as you see the long-term trend going way down like this, very, very solid signs that there can't be future massive Bitcoin sell-offs. Obviously, there's still billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on exchanges, whether there's, you know, over 10% of Bitcoin on supply or 7.5%. But the point is, when the trend is moving down, it means the key stakeholders are content holding their coins for safekeeping in cold wallets away from exchanges. And that is a good sign that there's no planned sell-off, or at least collective massive sell-off around the corner. And then in the same respect, this is looking at the top exchange addresses and how much Tether they're holding on exchanges. Very good sign that it's been moving up, especially right after Trump was elected, starting on November 5th, the night it happened. They started accumulating Tether on exchanges massively, and we got an increase, literally 73% more Tether is owned by top exchange addresses compared to right before Trump was elected. In the same respect, 26% more USD coin is on exchanges compared to before he was elected. So, very good signs by the two top stable coins. We want to keep seeing them rise. Obviously, Tether looks a little more consistent than USD coin, which has been jumping up and down. But we want to see these moving up and Bitcoin moving down as the ideal combination for bullish momentum in crypto. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So great long-term signs all around, in my opinion, between these two charts. A few other things. If we look at the social dominance of Bitcoin, in fact, got a better template where we can compare the top layer ones, layer twos, and Dogecoin. So the layer ones that we have in here are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance Coin, Solana, Toncoin, and Cardano. The layer twos we're looking at are Matic, Mantle, Arbitrum, Immutable X, Optimism, and Stark. And then the top meme coins we're looking at are Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, Pepe, Dog with Hat, I can't say that name seriously, and Bonk and Floki. So looking at the top six for each of these to see where traders' discussions are veering. It's kind of in the middle for layer ones. I would expect this to probably rise if we really creep up toward that 108K all-time high level for Bitcoin. And then for layer twos, it's also in the middle, but look at how meme coins are staying pretty low. This is a great sign that people are still being pretty cautious, not showing too many signs of greed. When we see this pink line going way up, it's usually a sign we're getting a bit overheated because traders are looking for speculative assets that don't resemble as much organic growth potential for the markets as we would when this green line for layer ones is way up high. So I like the sign that we're seeing here. As long as meme coin interest stays low, we're in good shape and greed is staying pretty dormant. But expect that if today continues to be a strong Friday, we go into the weekend with a little more meme coin interest. That's almost a guarantee. Okay. I also want to point out the fact that crypto is still tied pretty closely to the S&P. Obviously, the past couple days have been good for crypto. The beginning of the week was bad for both. Make sure this is refreshed here. There we go. So you can see kind of the second week starting off here, the S&P and crypto between the 6th and the 13th. Yeah, Bitcoin dropped about 10.2%. The S&P dropped about 2.5%. Those are pretty sizable drops for both because obviously the S&P isn't as volatile as Bitcoin. But since that time, I can get right on the crosshair. There we go. Yeah, Bitcoin's up about 13.6%. The S&P is up almost 2% again. Even gold is rebounding and getting close to its new all-time high again that it established back in late October. So all three sectors are tied pretty close together at the moment. We've talked about this a lot, but the biggest bull markets typically happen when there is very little correlation between equities and crypto. Doesn't mean opposite correlation. Some people think that crypto needs to be moving up when stocks moving down, and it's this anti-capitalist price that needs to kind of veer completely away from what real world companies are doing. That's not the reality these days. It might have been 8 to 10 years ago, but many have kind of identified crypto as being a bit more of a high leverage tech stock. That's not always going to be the case. We do still see there are many moments where crypto can blast off on its own without tech stocks and general equities markets following suit. But if we want to see like a huge wick where Bitcoin climbs to 150K this year or something, or even 200, expect that it's not going to be relying solely on stock markets moving up and down. There are still plenty of people expecting a regression to the mean this year, even with Trump, being perceived as a very pro stock market, pro crypto leader. Just be aware that there could be a retrace in the S&P 500, and that could drag down crypto with it. But if crypto is really strong and seeing a lot of independent institutional investors and whales out there, it could do some climbing even without the stock markets moving in the same direction that it has in the second half of 2023 and all of 2024. It's been such a good year and a half for all three of these sectors, really, that it's we haven't really seen a good test for crypto yet, like we have seen in the past, like 2021, where equities were kind of wavering a bit, but crypto is just going nuts. So we'll see on how that looks, but I wanted to point out the correlations there. Oh yeah, so development activity, I want to take a brief look at some of the top ecosystems right now. Ethereum remains number one, obviously, but if we look at the past 6 months, so we're looking at a 6-month time frame. Obviously, all ecosystems tend to dip over the holidays here at the end of the year, and then they start to resume, and we see development start to really activate again at the beginning of 2025. But in terms of the top 10, Ethereum's ecosystem overall is actually down about 9% in terms of development activity over the past 6 months. But Arbitrum, Optimism, Avalanche, Harmony, and Solana, these are the 5 ecosystems that have actually seen growth in the top 10 over the past 6 months. So that's a signal to you that if you are looking, especially for like a meme coin out there, look for ones that might be built on the growing ecosystems rather than the ones that have declined a bit. That said, Ethereum is still in a very firm lead in the number 1 position right now. So don't think too hard about which ecosystem your assets are on. Just understand that you'd rather be in an individual asset that is seeing plenty of positive development activity. The best way to check is to go to your data screener here and then sort by development activity and give it roughly 10-ish seconds or so. You'll see it sort like this, and then you'll get the top 10 over the past 30 days in terms of notable GitHub submissions. So these exclude things like regular Slack updates or just team chats that might fill up a GitHub. This only looks at actual GitHub activity that resembles development over time. Right now, we've got Internet Computer at number 1, Starknet, Hedera, Cardano, Chainlink, Optimism, Cosmos, Ethereum, Polkadot, and Kusama, rounding out the top 10. For a long time, from pretty much 2020 to 2023, it was all about Cardano, and then Polkadot and Kusama, which have the same GitHub repository. But things have changed quite a bit over the past year, and now we're seeing a lot of Internet Computer going in and out of the number 1 spot. Starknet's even gone in and out too. Good to see them climbing up to number 2. And then Hedera's been there a while. Chainlink's been in the top 3 occasionally. Optimism has been a regular. And then these down here are pretty new to the top 15 to 20. DeepBook has really made some strides, as well as Sui, which has been one of the biggest stories of the past 6 months or so. Synthetics has always been up there a little bit. Chia Network is definitely a new one to the top 20. But yeah, take a look at some of these projects. Obviously, check out their white papers if you're interested in what they're doing. And it's not coincidental that a lot of them have big, or I should say small market cap rankings, indicating they're some of the best performers in crypto. When you have dedicated teams that are innovating and improving the project constantly, keeping up with the technology needed to be a top cryptocurrency, that's what typically justifies a lot of these assets to be some of the best performers. So look for teams that are working on improving constantly, and you'll often find some nice gems, especially if they're outside of the top 100 and they're seeing tons of development. Pretty good sign that you're at the very least investing in a project that cares and is trying to make their way to the top. Now we're about 40 minutes in. Unless there are some questions or comments, Max, I think we can probably wrap up a tiny bit early today. Are you seeing anything? Okay, no worries. Well, I know most of you watch on replay. We appreciate all of the support you guys have given. We hit a milestone getting over 200,000 on X earlier this week, and we want to thank everyone who helped us get there. Thank you for following us on all of our platforms, whether it be X, YouTube, Telegram, our own Discord. The link tree is readily available on our X account at Santiment feed. So feel free to check that out if you're not sure where to find all of our socials. And as always, guys, trade safe. Don't over leverage. A lot of people make that mistake, especially when we see a big bull wick like we've seen over the past 4 days or so. Overall, the thing that I'm seeing is good whale activity, good on-chain activity, a little bit of a decline in utility, which is still concerning. Be a little mindful about the overheating average trading returns. I think short term, we might see a little bit of a letdown once Friday ends and we go into the weekend. But long term, it's still looking pretty good with the key stakeholders accumulating the way they are. So keep that in mind. Understand volatility is going to be part of the process of hitting another new all-time high. And it's not just going to be a clean shot above 108 once again and straight to 120 or whatever you're targeting. So be safe. We're here to talk to you about the markets anytime in our Discord, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care, guys.